make sure that we hand over the panelist control to you, and you can provide some brief comments maybe about a piece of hardware or software or something that you found that really makes these events work well. So just keep that in mind as we go through this deck, and we want to again learn from everyone. We know that there's a lot of knowledge out there. So with that, I'm going to hand it right off to you, Sean, to kind of talk about. We see a lot of folks are doing hybrid meetings, and so we need to think about how can we help people join our sessions when maybe it was more of an issue 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, but let's talk about tech support.
Sure thing. Thanks, Marshall. So as Marshall said, I mean, within the last couple of years, we've had a lot of clubs who have never delved into this realm of virtual meetings and hybrid meetings. More or less be kind of forced into it. And, over the last 2 years, some clubs have gotten really good at it. Some clubs are still kind of playing catch up a little bit. Some clubs are still shying away from it a lot. And one of the reasons that Marshall asked at the beginning of today's webinar in terms of, who's still using hybrid meetings, who's still using online video conferencing to conduct their meetings, is that, there are still going to be a lot of clubs who will continue using it, even as, a lot of COVID restrictions roll back and clubs may be able to get back into the routine of meeting in person. It provides a little bit of efficiency. It provides a little bit of accommodation, especially when it is that you want to continuously engage your members, where some of them may not be able to, make it to a physical meeting all the time. You can still, connect with them via, a lot of these systems that we've been using over the past 2 years. And that's a good thing. So in that same breath, the ability to provide some level of tech support to the members that want to join your hybrid meeting or want to join your fully online meeting is key. Now, from that perspective, I guess there's a lot of persons who, again, over the last 2 years have been falling into that kind of de facto role of tech support for your club. And the real question is, has that role become in any way official in your club? Should it become official in your club moving forward, where there's a person who is going to be, not just assigned, but dedicated to handle virtual meetings or fully online meetings or hybrid meetings, whether it's, from a technical standpoint in terms of setting things up, whether it's whether it's setting things up via Zoom, whether it's from an equipment standpoint, depending on what your setup is with cameras and mics, and also whether it's helping your members join those meetings, because there's still a little bit of uncertainty sometimes with newer members or persons new to the technology, how to join, who do I contact if I have a problem joining, up to, the last week of meetings that I've been participating in, you'll always end up with persons who will shoot you an email or send you a message saying, hey, I'm having a problem joining, and you got to kind of walk them through the process a little bit and help them out. So a key element of this is possibly, having that tech support role in your club, being a bit proactive about it and assigning somebody so that there's always somebody who is well known and is active in the club that can answer an email or take a phone call or get a text message and provide some sort of assistance to those members who need it, whether it comes to joining a fully online meeting or a hybrid meeting or whatnot. Obviously you're going to get a lot of the same questions over and over again, and sometimes you may get some questions that throw a bit of a curveball at you and you may end up scratching your head at. That's okay. The key element here is anytime you're providing any kind of tech support is not to be too, don't be overly anxious about it. Don't freak out or anything like that. There's always an answer that is going to be provided, even if it can't be right there and then. And I think that's a good segue to say, in any occasion where a club or a club's tech support person is having difficulty, that's when you can, possibly reach out to us as well. I mean, there's a lot of information that's online already. If you're using something like Zoom's help support page and website is fantastic. They pretty much, have most, if not all of the information and answers to your questions there. It's just a matter of finding it. Similarly, so if you're using another platform like Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or anything along those lines, there are great resources that the provider already has put up on its help page and support pages. Of course, there are also discussion groups that you can find where people have found, unique problems and have found answers to and solutions to those problems. You can also search for and find online. But I'll go so far to say too that, that's one of the things that we can help you out with. Even if we don't know the answer, we'll try our best to find an answer for you. In the same breath, I mean, I don't want to necessarily paint us as tech support people. That's not what our role and function is. But, if it's a matter of trying to help a club out after all of the avenues have been exhausted, please feel free. You can reach out to your respective public image contact on the zone team, and we'll try and help you out as well. Yeah, you want me to keep going, Marshall?
All right, there we go. I realized I coughed in everybody's ear. I apologize. I didn't mute and then I couldn't unmute. So sorry about that earlier. That was great, Sean. Thank you so much. And I forgot to mention, let me go back to the main screen here. We will make these slides available to you all. If everyone wants to stick your camera up to the screen real quick and grab that QR code, we do have the slides available for you on Canva. And we have a lot of those tips that Sean just went through available for you all. So we'll make this QR code available later on in the presentation at the end as well. But just wanted to give everyone a chance to grab their phones and grab that real quick, so you can grab those slides. So anyway, we asked when you all joined to let us know where you were calling from or joining us from, and then also what. If you were doing virtual or hybrid, excuse me, another call. Now, it would also be interesting if you could in the chat, let us know some of the technology that you might be using in your club. What are you using for hybrid meetings? Have you found some great microphones or some great cameras? That little Yoda, it's called a Bitty Boomer. It's a Bluetooth speaker. And I can tell you, if you have a meeting of 15 or 20 people, that Bitty Boomer will rival a lot of bigger speakers. And it's about $20 on Amazon. We've used that for like board meetings and stuff like that. It's worked really well. And that's to the left of that is a Blue Yeti microphone. It's got omnidirectional cartridges, I guess, in it, where it can pick up all the sounds in a room. We found that's pretty helpful for us small 15 to 20 person groups as well. But drop in the chat, what sort of equipment are you guys using? And we'd love to hear about some of the great techniques that you guys might have found. I can tell you it was funny when we had you all register for this event, we did ask everyone to let us know. Now I'm on Yoda's head. We asked everyone to give us some specific questions that you might ask or you might want. And we got a lot of questions about, I want to know more about streaming. We got some about social media, but a lot of folks want to know about, different platforms, about creative. A lot of folks want to know about the difference between the platforms and stuff like that. So we did get some really good feedback, and we're going to try to work through that right now. Not sure if any of you have heard, I'm going to get myself off screen again, of the diagrams and the guide that Terry Weaver out of Zone 33 coordinated using feedback from a lot of folks in Zones 33 and 34. That's another great resource for club meetings in terms of equipment and hardware and stuff like that. So there's another QR code if you want to go download that guide. It's been used by many folks to coordinate their zone meetings and their club meetings. And so highly recommend those. But right now, one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is there's three key elements to a great virtual or hybrid meeting. And of course, everyone always thinks about the production value. Is it does it run smoothly? Can we hear the speakers? Can we see the speakers? But there's also other elements that you need to be mindful of, and that's the creative. Have you really put some effort into making the slides look great? Or there's a lot of tools that you can use now to create lower thirds or to do overlays, or maybe a nice logo for your event. Do not mess with the Rotary logo when you're creating your event logo, please. Let's remind everyone, you can create a fantastic logo as long as it doesn't violate the master brand standards, okay? But get creative. And then the other kind of key element is content, making sure that the content is great. But tonight we did want to focus a bit on that production value aspect because essentially that's what you guys asked for. You want to know more about production value. So there's really two key things that you should focus on. Sean, I want to get your thoughts on this. The two things that I think make just an enormous difference in a successful event is going to be making sure you have reliable internet with adequate bandwidth, and then making sure you have excellent audio. Used to, when we were trying to find locations for club meetings, it was always, do they have capacity for our club? Is there room for our club? Can we get food there? Is there catering? But now it seems like the other part of that equation is, can we get reliable internet? Do they have wired connections so that we can stream? And then the other piece that a lot of folks are starting to look at is, do they have a sound system already in place? Or is there a sound system that we can tie into? So two more pieces to that equation for a lot of clubs when they're maybe post-pandemic finding places to meet is, what is the internet like and what is the audio like? And so when we think about internet capacity and bandwidth, of course, the internet providers always like to talk about those download speeds. That's great for Netflix and for gaming and stuff like that. But there's another piece of the equation that's very important as well, and that's how quickly is the data going up to the internet. We're not just pulling data down from the internet with our meetings. We're not just watching Netflix movies, but we're actually broadcasting our event out to people. So if possible, we always want to have a wired connection. A lot of times wireless connections can be a little flaky, a little bit difficult to be stable. But we also are looking for 5 megabits up and down as a minimum. I think at 5 megabits, Zoom says that they can do a pretty good job. But anything above that, of course, is going to be ideal. So, if you can find a meeting location where you can get that wired internet connection, that's going to be awesome. We just had Florida Pets here in Orlando a couple of weeks ago. And at first, they weren't going to give us a wired internet connection. They said, well, you can just run everything across wireless. And that just was not going to be suitable because we needed to stream some stuff in and out of the meeting. And so getting that wired connection and then getting the 5 megabits up or down. And then when I talk about minimizing competition for your bandwidth, I'm talking about anything that you do on your computer that connects to the internet, please turn it off. If you are the one responsible for streaming, that means cloud drives like Dropbox or OneDrive. That means email that's synchronizing with your email server. That means, like a lot of us with browsers that have 50 tabs open, each one of those tabs is still refreshing and it's still going out to the internet looking for updates and information. So if you are the one responsible for streaming your meeting, you want to make sure that you eliminate all of those leaks and all that competition for the bandwidth that you need to dedicate to your meeting by turning all that stuff off. What are your thoughts there, Sean?
Actually, it's a perfect segue, actually. So I'll just add a couple more things to what Marshall just said. In addition to, so a lot of us, and may some of those browser tabs, right? We may have things like Facebook open, or a lot of these other kind of background applications running that we may not be aware of that are pulling bandwidth. A lot of times you just need to just make sure and close as many of those off as you're aware of as possible. As Marshall said, just to kind of conserve and focus your bandwidth to purely just that online more hybrid meeting. Because it's going to be a matter of, again, just to reemphasize it, both what you're able to download, but more importantly too, just what you're able to upload. So Marshall actually had a screen up there with showing an example of a bandwidth test. And it's something that I would recommend, particularly, just before you start any type of hybrid or online meeting, run a bandwidth test. Even if it's going to be in the same location, same conditions, same everything, each and every time, just run a bandwidth test, because you never know what your internet service provider, what changes they may have made. Some ISPs throttle their bandwidth depending on the time of day, depending on where you're getting your internet from. You may actually be sharing it with others. So, you're not exactly sure how much you're getting versus how much they're pulling as well. So you need to be mindful of these things. And one of the easiest and quickest ways to determine if your connection is good enough for that meeting that's going to start in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes is to run a bandwidth test. So the one that Marshall has up on screen is provided by a company called Fast. Just put the link in the chat box. They will do both upload and download tests for you. And again, the minimum requirement for both upload and download when it comes to streaming anything that we're recommending is 5 megabits. If you don't meet that requirement, it's more than likely that, I'm sure some of us, particularly in Zoom, when we look at that bottom left corner of our Zoom screen, and we always see the incremental bars, right? That tells us, how good our connection is or how good somebody else's connection is. Some of us sometimes get a little bit of yellow in there. Some of us sometimes get a little bit of red in there. That's when you want to be really wary and careful of, poor connection or poor bandwidth. Additionally, as Marshall recommended, connecting via a hardline is always going to be a little bit more reliable than connecting via Wi-Fi. Sometimes you may not have a choice, and it's okay if you don't have that choice. Just make sure that if you're connecting via Wi-Fi, that you're in a good spot where the connection is stable. It doesn't keep fluctuating too much. There are even some applications that you can get to test, how good your Wi-Fi receiver and reception is. It measures it, and depending, if you move positions, it can tell you, hey, you're getting a better signal strength here than 5 feet away or in a different room and whatnot. And that's only if you can't get a hardline connection. I'll actually mention one other thing, and it's because I saw a comment from Dawn that said that their club currently meets at Copeland's restaurant that has a room and everything set up with a good sound system and whatnot. That's something that clubs can start looking into if it is that they're considering or possibly considering new venues, right? So as Marshall said before, it was all about catering and food costs and drink costs and whatnot. Now, if you're looking at hybrid meetings, particularly, you have to look at how good is the internet connection. Is there any multimedia or audiovisual equipment that's already there, so that you aren't necessarily put out to have to keep bringing these things in yourselves. And a lot of places, whether it's restaurants, whether it's kind of these ad hoc meeting spaces. Some clubs, I think I remember seeing the other day, there's a club that meets in a classroom in a university that's perfectly set up multimedia wise and AV wise for hybrid meetings. So, you can, not that we're saying, you have to change your venue, but if it is that you are looking for alternative venues to host your hybrid meetings in particular, those are things you can look out for, right? It ends up saving you a little bit of effort and time in not having to go and find all this other additional equipment yourself if it already is in the venue and set up already for you, where you can just plug in, connect to the internet, connect your laptop or your computer or whatnot to what they already have there, and you're good to go. Cameras are already set up, mics are already set up, the lighting's good. Some of these places already have like a built-in projector or built-in large screen TV that you can, see everybody else who's connecting with you. And all of those things are great and just makes life easier, especially when it's having something to repeat time and time again, where there's, minimal dependency on the club or an individual in the club having to lug all of this additional equipment into a space or even just source the equipment sometimes. So again, just to recap, hardline, minimum 5 bits, do a bandwidth test for both upload and download speeds. The one that's put in the chat is fast.com. And, if it is that you are looking for alternative spaces to accommodate your hybrid meetings, looking to see, spaces that already have good multimedia setups is always going to be a plus to benefit you down the road.
Absolutely. Great points, Sean. The other piece is, so now you're connected to the internet and you're broadcasting. It's great if people can see you, but if they can't hear you, they will leave. People can be very forgiving with some of that grainy, choppy broadcast video. They'll stick around, but if they can't hear you, they're going to leave. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, one of the microphones at my own club broke, and there was no audio. And so I wasn't sure why people were still on the call. I guess they were better lip readers than I am, but I dropped off because there really was no value for me at that point. So if people can't hear, they will definitely leave the meeting. So you want to make sure you have good audio. Again, there's that Blue Yeti and that little bitty boomer that I mentioned. On the far left, that's actually the setup that we use at the club that I help create the hybrid setup. At the top, those 2 wireless microphones, that's I think it was $150 to buy that setup for those 2 microphones and that receiver. It's a karaoke kit off of Amazon for $150. And then we connect that with that thing in the middle. That's a USB adapter. So that allows you to take the audio signal from those microphones and convert it into a signal that you can plug into your computer and run through Zoom. And so when you plug your USB cable into that red adapter, Zoom sees it as another audio device. So you select that as your microphone and as your speaker. And then the other piece is that tower speaker. That's a powered speaker that we connect to. And that actually belongs to the venue where we meet. It's a really nice speaker. And so what happens is by using those microphones and that USB adapter hooked up to that speaker in our laptop, we can talk to people remote and they can hear us and they can speak to us and we can hear them through that speaker. So it's really cool because a lot of times it's like they're in the room. We talk back and forth with the remote attendees, and on the overhead projector, we have a gallery view of all the people that are attending remotely. And so we can see them as well. Before the meeting starts up, we always turn down the volume on that speaker because we want to allow the people that are joining virtually to talk amongst themselves and not, kind of blare it over the speaker so everyone in the room can hear what they're talking about and kind of disrupt what's going on in the room. But once the meeting starts, we will ask them to mute, and then we turn that speaker up so that they can communicate with us. So that's, a couple of examples of the kinds of systems that you can use. A lot of places have those built-in sound systems, and you can use that USB adapter and tie into a sound system at a facility like a Copeland's or a university. And so you can run it, instead of through that powered speaker, you can run it through the speakers in the room. But again, you need that adapter to allow you to take that signal from those microphones and port it into your Zoom so that it can make that connection. And then there's always the high-end examples of using a complete soundboard, and that's the soundboard that we used for Florida Pets. So you can see all the wireless adapters back there for all the microphones that we were using. So that was a pretty high-end system. But in order to get the sound out of our laptop and into that machine, we use that device on the left, which is called a ground lift. And essentially, because your laptop is running on an AC current, the electrical current that goes through it, it creates a hum that can go through audio cables. And so you hook it up to that device on the left, and then you pipe that into the professional sound board, and it eliminates that hum that's coming in from your laptop. So that's called a ground lift device, or a lot of folks, it's another type of USB adapter for some folks. But just another way to bring in sound from your laptop into a professional soundboard and vice versa. So it just depends on your use case. And, as Sean mentioned earlier, we're not AV experts per se, but we know we have seen a lot and we've done a lot of events. And if you have a specific question for your event, you can ask us. But I can tell you what, Google is your friend. I have learned so much just through watching YouTube videos and Google, and there's a ton of resources out there to self-teach. And so don't be afraid to, you're not going to break anything. Don't be afraid to jump into Google and test a lot of this stuff out.
Sorry.
Yep, go for it, Sean.
I'm seeing here, Michael Brown has his hand up, so I just wanted to give him an opportunity to ask a question or before we move on too far and lose place. Michael, go ahead, man.
No, I'm sorry about that. I'm listening with interest because we have actually moved. We were virtual, then we went hybrid, and we actually had a face-to-face meeting 2 weeks ago. So we've actually tested all three systems, and pretty much we seem to be doing okay on the journey. So I'm listening. I see other persons online are from the club, but so far so good. We are making it, but I'm finding the presentation very, very instructive. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So on this screen, I've thrown up what it looks like in your Zoom when you have multiple audio devices available as a microphone and as a speaker. You can see in there the Rode NT USB Mini. That's one of those USB adapters that allows you to connect, a professional XLR microphone into your Zoom, and so it allows you to use high-end microphones as part of your Zoom event. The other thing is there's a tool for the Mac called Audio Loopback. There are similar ones for Windows, but I'm not exactly familiar with the names of those. But other things that you can do with audio is you can create these virtual microphones. And think about it. If you want to maybe play a playlist off of Spotify, and you also want to connect your microphones, and then maybe you want to show a video in a browser or some other audio, you can actually use these things called virtual microphones and combine all these audio sources into a single audio source and feed it into your Zoom meeting. A lot of times people try to play a Spotify playlist when they're doing a Zoom meeting, and a lot of times the system sound can't go through Zoom. Zoom doesn't see the audio coming out of those other applications because they're discrete. You may be able to hear a little bit of the audio coming through the microphone if you have your microphone unmuted, but these tools called virtual audio microphones or virtual audio channels will create a way of combining all those audio sources into a single source that you can pipe into Zoom. And so those are really nice for creating a better virtual production value. In terms of some of the tools that we use, one of the tools, and I've mentioned this before, we use this all over the place in Rotary Zone 34. It's a tool called Pro Presenter. And we've used it for pets, we've used it for zone summits, we've used it for club meetings. The reason why I like Pro Presenter and why we started using it more and more in Rotary events is because it was essentially developed for churches. And in a lot of ways, Rotary is a lot like church uh, in terms of some of the formats of some of the meetings. But it's also like church in terms of a lot of people that are going to be running the equipment are all volunteers. They're not professional AV experts. And so ProPresenter is a really nice tool where you can load in slides and load in videos and load in audio and create a really seamless, nice production using this tool. It's great because you can pay for it once, and you can use that license as your production version when you're doing an event. But everyone else in your team can download a version of that tool to their computer. It's a full-featured version. They just can't present using it because it overlays a watermark on the output. And so what happens is a lot of people will download their version of ProPresenter and kind of create some of the files, the assets that need to go into the production, and then they send it over to the person that's going to be doing the production, and then it can be used within that event. So it's a great way of kind of distributing the work because not everyone has to have a license to create a lot of the assets that go into the event. That's one software version that people are using. There's another one, and I don't know if he's on the call tonight. Nico Iannelli from the Charlotte district, current district governor, he uses Ecamm a lot. I'm actually using Ecamm tonight for this event. That's how I can put myself up on screen sometimes like this. And Ecamm is really built for streaming, and it allows you to do overlays, and it allows you to add sound, to add animation, stuff like that. It's built for the Mac. It's Mac OS based. There is a tool for Windows called vMix that is really helpful, and a lot of people are using that. And then one of the questions that came in, someone asked about Open Broadcast System, OBS, and a lot of folks are using OBS. It's another great platform. I think it's free. vMix and Ecamm. vMix has, I think you pay for it once. Ecamm's more of a subscription model, but OBS is free. Although there are some paid versions of it, I think that a lot of gamers and streamers are using on things like Twitch to stream stuff. So there are some paid versions that have extra features, but a lot of folks get away with just basic OBS. I've seen churches using OBS to kind of organize their streaming production. So they can have a couple of shots and they can alternate between the shots or slides that the pastor is sharing. And so, yeah, StreamYard is also a good one. There's StreamYard, and I'm trying to think, there's one other, but just do a Google search for streaming platforms. Restream has a really nice one that you can use, and Restream actually allows you to stream to, and I think a lot of these nowadays do this. You can stream to YouTube, to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to a website. They allow you to stream to multiple places at the same time. So definitely take a look at those. Yeah, this is what Ecamm looks like if you use Ecamm. Let me throw this up there. So that was me interviewing past President Barry. We're getting ready for an event, but you can create all your overlays. You can have your cameras ready. You can have sound effects. And when it's time to push, like tonight, what I'm doing is I am pushing a virtual camera into Zoom, and Zoom sees it as just another webcam. And so to Zoom, this is just like the webcam on top of my computer. And so it takes all the different sources, all the inputs, and combines it into one feed, and then feeds it into Zoom. Actually, I have a picture of District Governor Nico. This was an event he did, I think, about a month ago for CART, Coins for Alzheimer's Research. And he did a broadcast of a concert. And you can see all of his screens in the background, his camera. He's got a stream deck there. Nico is pretty well set up there with his lighting and stuff like that. So again, a lot of this, it's self-taught, but a lot of these companies that are producing these softwares are really putting together some fantastic tutorials because they know so many people want to use these technologies. And so there's some really good stuff on YouTube. Again, the software providers provide a lot of good content, And yeah, I certainly recommend it. One of the other questions that we got tonight was what platform is best? What should we be using? Should we be using GoToMeeting or Teams? And I know I personally was a big fan of GoToMeeting about 5 years ago before the pandemic and all that. We would use GoToMeeting for our webinars for Zone 34. We would do all this through GoToMeeting. But it seems like through the pandemic, Zoom just took that quantum leap. They became the Band-Aid or the Xerox. You know, do you have a meeting today? Yeah, I have a Zoom meeting. They may be doing it on GoToMeeting or Teams, but it's a Zoom meeting. So Zoom kind of became that 800-pound gorilla in the room. But they also have a lot of very user-friendly features. And I think there's a very low barrier to entry to get into a Zoom meeting that maybe GoToMeeting. And I know certainly with Teams, I use Teams every day with my job with my company. And it seems like if people aren't used to Teams, sometimes it can be difficult. And so Zoom has a low barrier to entry. I think most Rotary organizations are using Zoom. And, you know, it seems like since everyone's so familiar with it, I would certainly recommend using Zoom as much as you can. Sean, you had some thoughts on Teams.
Yeah, so a lot of persons ask, you know, and not just recently, but over the last year or two, you know, should they be using Zoom? Should they be using Teams? Teams was usually the next option after Zoom that a lot of people kind of wondered about. And Teams is great. You know, it's a incredible platform. However, the one distinguishing fact between Zoom and Teams comes down to one thing and kind of one thing alone, which is Teams is a suite of applications kind of all put into one that is, you know, really about more, it's about collaboration, it's about project management that just happens to provide video conferencing facilities versus Zoom, which is all about video conferencing. So a lot of the times when, you know, somebody's looking into it, it may not necessarily be comparing apples to apples if you're trying to compare what Zoom offers versus what Teams offers as far as video conferencing goes, because Teams is offering not just video conferencing, but so much more. So if it is that you're looking at Teams as an alternative to Zoom purely for video conferencing, you may be doing yourself a bit of disservice because you may end up not using 80 and 90% of all the other functions that Teams may be good for, unless that's kind of your overall plan, especially from a club administrative perspective, where you can use Teams to help with collaboration for projects, to help with communication strategies, to help with overall project management. That's what Teams is built for, in addition to it providing you with video conferencing capabilities. But
That's right.
at the end of it, Zoom is there, you know, and is building their empire purely on video conferencing and all the little ancillary aspects of it. As Marshall mentioned too, I was a big fan as well years ago of GoToMeeting. That was my standard when it came to video conferencing. But, you know, especially in the last couple of years, Zoom has kind of taken over, you know, in the race and become kind of the standard that everybody's going to. The other ones that, you know, may not be on the screen that, but also may be worth mentioning as well, as clubs should not feel forced into, you know, having to utilize one of these kind of subscription-based or paid applications, right? Sometimes it's in your budget to do it. Sometimes it's not in your budget to do it. There are many other free and stable and really good video conferencing applications that you can look into and explore to see if it works for you. A lot of clubs I know, they've never used Zoom, they've never used Teams, they've only used Google Meet. It's completely free. It's not to say that they have any kind of time restriction or anything like that. There are a few little, you know, nuanced restrictions or limitations that some of these free ones may provide. Easiest example I can use is, you know, Google Meet does not allow you to automatically record your meetings, but, you know, depending on what the nature of it is, you may not need to, and you're not out of pocket anything. but it's not going to prevent you from having 20, 30, 40, 100 plus participants in your meeting. There's no restriction when it comes to that, and it's completely free. Well, free in the sense that you need a Google account to use it. And there are many others out there. Jitsi is another one that I know a lot of persons have used. It's completely web-based. You don't need to download any software whatsoever for it. And it's all really dependent on what you need, what you have available, how it's going to be used, who it's going to be using it. There's so many things out there right now. And, the purpose of this is not to overwhelm you with too many options, but just to demonstrate the diversity of options that's out there. I'm going to let Marshall continue when it comes to, separate from your platforms, how else you can, put your message out there with regards to streaming to the internet.
Yeah, we're big fans on the Zone 34 team of Vimeo. We have put all of our past webinars into a Vimeo showcase. So we think Vimeo works really well. We've also done some events where we have streamed to a web page on a website. So whether it was a pets or a zone meeting or something like that, you can embed the stream into the website, which is really nice. It also, Vimeo allows us to simultaneously stream to Facebook and to YouTube at the same time, which is really nice too. I know a lot of folks, it's super easy in Zoom now to just click stream to Facebook. And so you can kind of get your message out to Facebook. It's also pretty easy to get it out to YouTube as well. The one thing I would tell you to be mindful of is if you're streaming out to one of those platforms like Facebook or YouTube, they have lots of lawyers, and so does the music industry. And so just like we need to be mindful of maybe sometimes using videos or images, we need to be mindful of using music. And a lot of times you can get in trouble if you do play some sort of a music on your stream, and you can get hit with what they call a strike, and they'll actually stop your stream. And so just be careful if you're using any sort of audio. I know we got in trouble with Aretha Franklin's estate, had a Pets a couple of years ago because someone wanted Respect as their walk-on. So just be careful with using some of that copyrighted material. I can tell you that you can buy licenses for a lot of these events. You can buy a license from BMI or something like that, so you can play music. But even still, even if you have the license, a lot of times Facebook and YouTube, they just assume that you don't. And so they'll go ahead and they'll bump you off your stream because they think that you're breaking copyright law by playing some music. So just be very mindful when you're using any sort of copyrighted materials. That's why we like Vimeo. We stream directly to Vimeo and, like I said, embedded on a website because we stay away from Facebook and YouTube, and there are legions of lawyers. Lawyers are nice people. Paul Harris was a lawyer, but we don't want them interrupting our stream if we're trying to have an event. So that's the only thing I would recommend there. So we're coming up.
Sorry,
yeah,
Marshall. Just
no
one
worries.
more thing to add to that. A few slides ago, we mentioned the importance of upload and download bandwidth. Just keep in mind that when you're providing additional streaming, whether it's to Vimeo, Facebook, YouTube, even to some clubs stream to their websites and whatnot, that's additional upload bandwidth that you're going to need separate and apart from what Zoom is pushing out. So you really want to make sure, especially when you're doing multiple streams, as Marshall said, like Vimeo can push things out to multiple channels. Some persons, like if you're using something like OBS, as we had mentioned before, OBS can push things out simultaneously to, Facebook and YouTube. Every one of those channels that it's pushing stuff out to requires bandwidth. So you really want to make sure that when you are streaming to the internet, particularly your upload bandwidth is going to be sufficient. We recommended earlier 5 megabits. Think of it this way: 5 megabits should be for every channel. If you're going to be streaming out to multiple channels, you should have at least 5 megabits for every channel. So in other words, if you're going to stream, if you're going to be running Zoom and then pushing it out to Facebook and pushing it out to YouTube simultaneously, you should be looking at 5 plus 5 plus 5, so at least 15 megabits in terms of upload speed.
It's a great point. People don't think about that. All that data that's being transmitted out to all those different platforms. So certainly have to be mindful of that. So we talked about some of the software that we use, whether it's Ecamm or Zoom or vMix or open broadcast software or ProPresenter. There's also some hardware that you can use. I mean, it's amazing. A lot of this professional grade enterprise hardware is now really approachable to folks, and a lot of it has come through just this streaming, all the streaming that the gamers started doing a couple of years ago. And I mean, it's really just kind of amped up. The technology is amazing. We talked about increasing your production value by using a virtual camera. Like I said, I'm using one out of Ecamm right now into Zoom. You can also use instead of using the webcam that's built into your laptop or a webcam that's tied into like a USB port, you can use a high-end 35 millimeter camera as your webcam if you like, using a capture device like the one we have there on the screen. That's the Elgato Cam Link. And those are really nice because Zoom sees it just like another camera, and it takes that HDMI output and feeds it right into a signal that your laptop can read. You do want to make sure that you can get what's called a clean output out of your camera. You don't want the output that goes into Zoom to have like all your telemetry data, your f-stops and your all that kind of stuff. You want a clean output coming out of that camera going into your laptop. So you can also, instead of just using a camera, you can run another laptop, and you can have that playing applications or slides or videos. So you don't have to go through all that rigmarole of sharing screen. It's just another camera source down at the bottom. So like tonight, we're just spotlighting my video and as a feed. So you can just have, whether it's your camera as your feed, or you can have it as the additional laptop and the output of that coming into Zoom as a feed. It makes it pretty easy. And sometimes, screen sharing can be a little bit kludgy, trying to click it and then find the right window and then start it and stuff like that. Using something like a USB capture device allows you to run that second laptop and have the output going straight into Zoom, and it makes it really seamless. There's other high-end, not high-end, golly, that's an A10 Mini Pro. That device costs $295, and it allows you to take in the feeds from a laptop, maybe a Zoom session, maybe a camcorder, and it allows you to switch between all those devices. And then you use your USB cable directly into your laptop that's running Zoom. And again, the laptop just sees it as a webcam, and you can just seamlessly switch between a lot of different slides or programs or applications or videos or cameras, and just really make a really nice production by using something like the A10 Mini Pro. Like I said, that little device is $295, and it's super powerful. You also can plug a USB drive into it and record everything that you're doing. It also has a Ethernet port on the back. So you can also, at the same time you're doing this through Zoom, you can be streaming to Facebook or YouTube or Vimeo using a hardwired connection. So super powerful device. And then one of the other favorite things, and again, like I said, we're just trying to give you ideas of ways to increase production value. In an hour, it would be so hard for us to actually teach you how to do all of this. We're just trying to open your eyes into what's available and what's possible. Like I said, Google and YouTube are your friends. The Elgato Stream Deck is an amazing device because it allows you to have buttons at your desktop that allow you just to run different scenes or mute your microphone. I'm using an Elgato right now, so I can push a button and then make my face appear on the screen. So it's really amazing what you can do now with just these little devices on your laptop and a hardware device on your desktop. So I highly recommend that you look into the Elgato Stream Deck or the A10 Mini Pro because these are really, really powerful tools. All right, so here is the production room for the opening session for this year's Pets here in Florida. And as you can see, we had a couple of computers running. We had the Stream Deck running. We didn't use the ATEM for this one. Really didn't need it, but had a bunch of things going so that we could create this seamless experience, going back from Dr. Sylvia Whitlock over to screens to another speaker. And there I have my script so I can follow along to make sure I'm doing everything at the right time. So really, it was a pretty easy production there. And then here's another one from actually when we went to Pets. Oh, click back too far. This is in Orlando. Hold on 1 second. Let me get my head off of Kelsey's face. Oop, wrong one. So you can be too fancy with this sometimes. Oh my goodness. I'm on the wrong screen. There it is. All right. So with that, we were running the ATEM Mini. That's actually a size above the ATEM Mini. And we were running the Stream Deck. We actually had an iPad there. The iPad was handling some transitions between screens. And then we were running Pro Presenter, and we were right next to the audio mixer there. And so again, want to give you guys ideas of how you can up the production value. Happy to provide consultation. Again, you can find a lot of this stuff through Google and YouTube, but it's amazing how accessible all of this is now through just equipment that you can buy off of Amazon. I mean, professional grade equipment. And here's one more photo. This is someone loves the Twizzlers. I tell you, Twizzlers are a great anxiety stress reliever. I can bite a Twizzler into 72 pieces now. So this is Tri-District Pets up in the Pennsylvania area. They did a really nice virtual event for their pets. Ivar Berg shared these on his Facebook, and so I grabbed them because I thought it was really great with the backdrop, the lighting, so you can see what the audience sees, and then down in the lower left-hand corner, you can see all the production that's going on behind the screen, behind the scenes. And so a lot of folks are really doing some great stuff with this technology now, and just absolutely encourage you to check it out. One important thing is to practice. You know, that might be, of course, before the event, going through, meeting with your speakers, talking about lighting and telling them to turn off Dropbox and anything that's going to suck that bandwidth. It's also kind of helping them understand the run of show so they understand the order and when they're up. And even when we do the big events like Pets or Zone Summit or something like that, we'll get in there before the doors open and it's an empty room. And we'll just go through the entire show, clicking buttons and making sure that we almost like getting that muscle memory ready to know, okay, when this happens, I need to click these buttons to make sure that this all goes off the way it's supposed to. So practice is super important, and just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the equipment and kind of understand. I can tell you this: you are the most flexible when you're completely prepared, because if you're completely prepared, you can roll with the punches. So when stuff happens, when cables break or something like that happens, you can adapt quickly because you're not stressed out just trying to keep the boat afloat with toothpicks and bubble gum. You are flexible because you're not stressed because everything is kind of running the way it's supposed to. So hey, Sean, the event is over. Now what do we do?
I will very quickly just kind of mention a couple random little tips and tricks that, a lot of us have either accidentally or purposefully come across, particularly in the last couple of years. So the first is just to just to re-emphasize the importance of what Marshall last said, which is practice. You know, a lot of times, a lot of us, whether it's at a club level or at a district level or at a zone level, we want to do, you know, some type of online event, or we want to do some type of hybrid event. We're going to have guest speakers coming in. A lot of clubs, you know, because of the fact that we've had to do a lot of online stuff, a lot of clubs have taken advantage of it, right? And one of the best advantages has been inviting speakers from everywhere and anywhere who otherwise would not have had the opportunity to come and visit your club or come and speak at your meeting. But because it's all online, because it's, you know, let's say via Zoom or something, they now can. But obviously, you know, especially if you have a great speaker, the last thing you want to have to deal with is, you know, little faux pas like bad lighting or a bad internet connection or somebody fumbling around trying to launch a presentation. So again, all of those things are what, you know, practice is really going to minimize and hopefully eliminate altogether when that actual time comes for your speaker and your event to take place. Something that, you know, I try and do myself all the time is prior to an event, whether it's a day or 2 or 3 before the event, is have like, you know, a separate little discussion and speakers orientation where you go through the things that Marshall recommended, the run of show. You make the speakers comfortable in what they need to do, when they need to do it, how they need to do it. You actually go through the entire process with them and make sure that, you know, they themselves are comfortable with it. They themselves are going to be presented, excuse the pun, but in the best light. You know, a lot of persons may not realize that, you know, where you position your camera is key, particularly if it's, you know, going to be facing something like a window or a door. Anywhere that natural light is going to be in front of the camera, it's going to throw off their picture. And you can, you know, make those adjustments and make those recommendations before the event happens itself and run through a lot of those things with them. You know, as we said, audio is key. You want to make sure that their mic is good, you're hearing them okay. A lot of persons are using wireless devices now, like, you know, whether it's earbuds or something to pick up their sound. And sometimes they work great, sometimes they may not work great. And you want to try and catch those things early on. Another thing that I could recommend is, you know, particularly when you're having a very, let's say, involved event where you may have multiple speakers happening one after the other, you're not always going to get that opportunity prior to the start of the event to go through everything with every speaker, because every speaker isn't going to be there at the very start. So something that, you know, you can try and do is, if you're running a meeting environment, let's say, particularly in Zoom, you can set up a little breakout room in Zoom. I call it the green room. And every time a new speaker joins, you just send them straight to the breakout room. You can go through all your tech checks with them in there in private. You're not disrupting the flow of the regular meeting in any way, but you can at least make sure, again, their lighting, their audio, their presentation, everything's working properly. And, you know, as soon as your tech check is done, they come out of the green room back into the main room and, you know, they're good to go. If you're in a webinar environment, it's a little different because you don't necessarily have that breakout room ability in a webinar environment. But, you know, you can set up different things, whether it's a separate meeting, do all your checks in that separate meeting before they join the webinar. The whole point is just, you know, try and be as prepared as possible, is what, you know, Marshall was saying, right? The more prepared you are, the more relaxed everybody's going to be. And more importantly, the better position you're going to be in to handle a lot of the unknown things that can pop up. Last little tip I'll give is, you know, don't feel that you have to be, that all these jobs have to fall on one person's shoulders. Having a small, medium, or large team of people to help out is always good, particularly when a person can be assigned specific responsibilities for an online meeting or an online event or a hybrid meeting or a hybrid event. So in other words, if one person's responsible for managing question and answer chat boxes and whatnot, great, that's their job for the day. They can take care of it. and you can focus on something else. Another task could be, if you do set up something like a breakout room or green room, somebody is responsible for that. Every time they see a new speaker join, they invite them into there, they do all the checks with them. The whole point of it is that, a lot of times, even though our recommendation, if you're going to be continuing with online and hybrid meetings, our recommendation is for clubs to have a designated, tech person and online meeting kind of coordinator. It doesn't have to be just that one person's role and responsibility, particularly when you have larger events and they're more cogs in the machine that need to be paid attention to, right? You can bring persons on an ad hoc basis, and some of them you may need to teach them what they need to do beforehand, but many hands make light work, and it's a bit more efficient to do it that way sometimes. I lied. There's one more tip I will make. Again, the whole idea here is not necessarily to overwhelm clubs and overwhelm members, to have them feel like, oh my God, look at how many things I need to do. Look at all this equipment I need to get. It's not about that. Again, as Marshall said, it's just about kind of making clubs and members aware of what's available and what's out there. And here's something else that's out there. There are a plethora of audiovisual companies out there. Some large, some medium, some small, that, I've personally seen all over the world have stepped up to help out organizations like Rotary clubs when it comes to their AV needs, when it comes to online and hybrid meetings. Those guys, they will come in and they will probably have a lot of this equipment that we're speaking about already. And, in some cases, they may be able to offer it to you and your club at a great price. And in some cases, that may be better than you doing it yourself. Some clubs I know have developed long-term relationships with AV companies where, that's their go-to when it comes to online or hybrid events. They just let the company know, hey, this date, this time, this location, everything's set up for them when they get there. So that's another option to also consider, right? Is you can outsource a lot of this to local AV companies. Some of these companies literally can be one person, all right? And that will be essentially a small company. But, they're medium-sized ones, large-sized ones. I'm sure, ask around the members of your clubs. Somebody will probably know of an AV company, and you can explore that option as an alternative, and just outsource everything. At the end of the day, it's all about trying to increase your production value, whether it's done internally by members of the club or whether it's done externally by a third-party provider. It's just to elevate the overall output of the club to a level where you're proud of what's being put out there. Marshall, I don't know if we want to talk about post-event stuff.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, and I agree with you completely. People are taking time out of their lives. People are so busy now. It's so important that we provide them with good value and a great experience when they come to a Rotary event. And I think that's what kind of got me into this, was making sure that, if someone's going to go to an event, I want them to think that was the most amazing experience I've ever had. I've told this story before, but I remember going to a large Rotary event, and I remember watching as up on the screen, someone opened up Windows Explorer, went to a folder, found the PowerPoint deck, double clicked it, and then put it up on the screen. And I thought, we've taken time out of our lives to come to this, and this is the most amateur thing I've ever seen in my life. We can do better than this. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved in production, because I knew that we need to be respectful of people's time and give them that great experience. And so that's one of the reasons why, I started doing some of the production stuff. So you're absolutely right. It's so important that we provide a good experience for the time that they've invested with us. So in terms of what happens after it's over, of course, and that's going to be very consistent with what's going to happen after this webinar is over, we like to send out a follow-up email with a link to the recording. And we'd like to send any notes from the webinar that may be interesting. Someone asked if we could send links to some of the items that we spoke about on Amazon, and we can certainly include that. So you certainly want to send out that follow-up email with a link to the recording. We always load things onto our past webinar showcase on Vimeo. One of the things that we do also is we use a lot of branded links for the Zone 34 team. So when you registered for this, it was rotaryshares.org/22, what was it, stream webinar. What we'll do is we'll take that link that you used originally to register for the webinar, and it took you to that form, and we'll switch it over. So now if you use that link starting tomorrow, it's going to take you to the recording. It's just kind of a nice touch because everyone already has that link because they used it to register. And so now instead of using it to register, they're going to use it just to access the video. But, you know, other great things that you can do is send out surveys, ask for feedback, and just, you know, essentially make sure that you stayed on point, you provided the information people were looking for, and find out what you can do to get better. That's the most important thing, is learn from your experience and make each event a little bit better than the one before. What are some of your ideas, Sean? What are things that you like to do with post-event?
So I'll mention one thing. Just because you may or may not have had a few little faux pas during your event doesn't mean that they need to stay there. So that's my segue when it comes to editing your recording, right? So you have this recording. It's essentially a raw recording of everything that would have taken place. And if you have the time, if you have the personnel, if you can do it internally, if you can outsource it, you know, adding a few little touches or a few little edits to your recording can go a long way as well. You know, particularly, again, from not just a production value, but the overall value of the experience that you want viewers of that recording to take place. So case in point, you know, every one of these webinars that we do as the Zone, we share the recording afterwards. And, you know, a lot of times clubs and other sides of Rotary will do the same. You know, but hey, maybe putting in a little bit of an intro, putting in a little bit of an outro, editing a little bit where you can get rid of some you know, little gaps that may have taken place. It takes a little bit of time depending on how much you want to do, but your final product may be a little bit cleaner, maybe a little bit smoother, and that's what's going to stick around for most people. That's what's going to last, is that recording more than anything else. So you may want to just put a little bit of effort into slight editing. You know, I'm not talking about major stuff, just to make sure that, again, you maintain or perhaps even enhance the overall value of what you're putting out there. And from an editing standpoint, you know, most computers come with some type of built-in editing software, right? So if you're using a Mac, it comes with iMovie, and iMovie is great to do, you know, really straightforward, simple editing stuff. It actually can do a lot. Similarly, so if you're using a Windows-based machine, depending on the age of your machine, some of them use something called Windows Movie Maker. You may have a different version of it depending on what version of Windows you're using, but it's there, and you know, it came with your machine, so it's free. There are obviously, you know, all different types of other editing platforms and editing applications that you can find online. Some are completely free, some are ones you got to pay for. Nobody's saying that you have to go and spend any money on editing software or anything like that, because again, what we're emphasizing here is not a lot of heavy editing. You're not going to be putting in, you know, a ton of CGI or special effects or anything like that. It's just to help you clean up, you know, any little errors or mistakes that may have happened during the course of your online event, whether it's a meeting or webinar or conference or whatever it may be. And, you know, hey, add a little bit of an intro, add a little bit of an outro, brand your recordings, I think is a great thing too. You know, to make sure people know where that recording came from, make sure they know who's putting it out there. So even if you just throw your club's logo in at the beginning and at the end, that's a great way to you know, intro and outro your recording. Because remember, you're putting it out there. It's it's available, whether you make it publicly available or even if it's privately available just to your members, it's still out there. So, you know, adding some kind of branding to it through slight edits is always a great thing.
Great suggestions. Really good stuff, Sean. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your assistance tonight with this webinar. And as mentioned, we went over a whole lot of stuff. We are always here and available to help in any way that we can. If you have specific questions about anything that we mentioned, you know, there's so many good resources online, but we have been down the road. And so we maybe could help you understand some of the things that you want to do and can provide that guidance. So please reach out to us if we can help. There's that QR code so you can download the slide deck. We will be sending out an email, a follow-up with a link to the recording. And so you can go back and watch it later on. And I put the link in the chat for the Public Image Bootcamp that's scheduled for April 25th. You don't want to miss that. You want to make sure that your president-elect and your secretary know about that, as well as your incoming public image chair, so they can join. And it's not as scary as they may think it is. It's actually a pretty fun job to be the public image chair. So I hope to see a lot of you on April 25th at that. So for Sean and for Kim and the entire Zone 34 public image team, I want to thank you tonight for your participation and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care, everyone. Good night.